All right, so we're here with Patrick Ramirez. Where are you joining us from?
I am currently in Minneapolis, so in the
Minneapolis.
uptown area.
Is that where you're living now?
Yeah, so yeah, kind of like, where everything was going on this past summer in that area.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
Okay, so Patrick was a wrestler at Dodge Center High School. Most Dodge Center people probably know of you. Um, Good wrestler. He took second at state. I always remember watching him in high school. He wrestled my older brother. I always liked watching Patrick wrestle. Always a fun wrestler. Looked up to him a lot. I know I went in and practiced with you a few times, and it was just awesome. You're older when you get older people to practice with, and you're getting their advice. It's awesome. So I'm glad I got to do that.
Thanks, man.
But yeah, we have a bunch of questions that we wrote down. Just gonna ask you. You can answer them however you would like.
Yep.
Pretty basic. So the first question is, how did you get started in wrestling? Do you have family in it? What year? When did you start?
I don't know the specific year, but I was a third grader and I was super shy, man. The reason why I got started was because I think this was Mr. Van Beek, Coach Shane Van Beek. It was like his first year coaching at Triton, and he got my brother Michael Ramirez to start wrestling, and then my brother Kevin Ramirez started wrestling. And at the time, he was doing the elementary practices, so the youth practices, and I've known him since I first started wrestling, and that's kind of how I got into it. I knew my brother was wrestling, and I knew my brother Kevin were wrestling, and it's kind of like those are like the guys I looked up to. I see them every day at my house. They were the ones who would actually beat me up. I'm sure you've dealt
Yep.
your fair share of butt whoopings when you were younger, Morgan, from Mason
Yep.
and Mills.
For
So,
sure.
and yeah, I'm guessing you probably got an interest that way as well from your brothers.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
So
Chris.
how did you how would you describe like your success level at the elementary level?
Oh, great question. I was horrible, but not in like no, I was just horrible. I was one of those kids who like I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't even know that the full Nelson was legal. Like I just didn't comprehend it. So I was like as beginner as it gets, very shy, very timid, got onto the mat, was scared of like actually like wrapping up with someone, getting into like you know what I mean? And just I was scared to be physical, and I didn't start getting it until probably later that year, like because I did all the NYWA stuff and it really paid off. I mean, I didn't wrestle throughout summer or like that coming fall or anything. How I know a lot of wrestlers do, especially now. But right off the bat, I was so scared. But those practices and having like having really good coaches who are willing to be patient and walk you step by step through, what I mean, your heel toe knee, doing heel toe knee every single Tuesday, Thursday, because I think that's how our practices were, Tuesdays and Thursdays. But literally just always heel toe knee, heel toe knee, heel toe knee. You just keep doing that, you're going to perfect your shot at the lower level for sure. So I was very, very, very like, I can't stress enough how bad I was at that level.
Yeah. So I know you said something about not really feeling comfortable, not aggressive. And obviously, you're a great guy, super nice. Um, and how'd you kind of flip that switch from wrestling, like when you got older, I guess? When did obviously on the mat you're a whole different person. You're ready to go. You're ready to attack. You're ready to be aggressive. And then off the mat you switch it as soon as you walk off the mat. You go back to being yourself. You go back to being how do you kind of switch that or flip that switch?
Yeah, so I gotta give a big shout out to Seth Johnson because I met him in fourth grade, and we were just like two peas in a pod instantly, and he was in the wrestling room, but like the people in the wrestling room during when I was in third grade, like the studs, where I know Josh Smith was even a stud at the time. I'm sure some of the coaches, maybe some of the some of the community members at Triton Dodge Center know of him, but as well as Josh Smith, it was Brock Franco, Seth Johnson, and at the youth level, those guys were, those kids were the studs. Those were the ones that were going off to NYW State and like good. So when I met Seth in 4th grade, I met him at a football game, and we were just running around, outside of the fence, outside of the, just playing football and stuff. And next thing I know, we're practicing together. And that's when I started to actually like build my intensity, because not only is he my friend, but I want to be better than him. Like, I'm seeing him, I see how successful he is at all of these, Saturday tournaments, Friday tournaments, sometimes Sunday tournaments, and he's doing good. He's sitting right at the top of the podium. And you just kind of tell yourself, like, that's where I want to be. If my friend can do it, I can do it too. And Seth was my wrestling partner from 4th grade all the way up until our senior year. He was, and I think that was like the one thing that, like, when you have someone pushing you like that, like when you're on the mat, you can flip the switch from I hate you, I'm going to destroy you, to as soon as, that whistle blows and it's over, good match. You're my bro. You're my brother. We kicked each other's butts, but I still love you, And that was like, I don't know. I don't think I would have been the same wrestler that I was without, Seth Johnson. And of course, Lucas Etchison at the youth level, he was a little scrambler too. So, having those guys around you that you want to be like them, even at that close of an age group, makes you really want to like, I got to get mad. I gotta go out there. I have something to prove, even at that young of an age.
I agree. We stress that a lot, that like practice partners are so important, especially at a young age.
100%. Yeah.
So yeah, you kind of started, is that when you kind of started taking it seriously, when you started practicing with him? So elementary still.
So it was my second year. Yeah. 4th grade that's when I started taking it serious. That's when I started like realizing like NYWAs, like, where the good wrestlers are going to go. You go from the regionals to state, and you have to place, at the time, I don't know if it was the top 3 or the top 2 for regions, but either way, I would always I ended up short 4th every year up until my 8th grade year. My 8th grade year is when I won my regions bracket. And then I went to the little NYWA state tournament and I took 3rd. And that to me was like super cool, because I was in 8th grade. I had wrestled a little bit of varsity, but like it took me from 3rd grade to 8th grade, like a lot of time to actually see like not the improvement, because I was improving every single year, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grade. But 8th grade was when I was like, oh, okay, like I can beat you, Seth. Like, I'm starting to get that mentality. Like, I'm better than you and I know it, and I'm not going to slow down because I don't want you to slow down. If I slow down, if I show any sign of weakness, I'm inviting you to just kick my butt, out on the mat. And I think that's the big mentality shift that I had with, Seth, Brock Franco, that Josh Smith and Lucas Etchison. It's like, I don't care if you're my best friend or not, I'm going to beat your butt. And that's it. And I hope you have the same mentality. And it really was crazy for me to see that it took until my 8th grade year of, the NYWA to finally make it to that state tournament. And it was awesome. So big shout out to those guys.
Well, and to kind of piggyback off of that from my last question, if you get into high school, it's kind of a similar story for you with high school, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank you. I was just going to say 7th grade is, I didn't get to wrestle varsity 7th grade. I was too low in weight, but I was wrestling JV. And I think Seth might've wrestled varsity a couple times the 7th grade year. I know Lucas was wrestling right off the bat 7th grade year. He was a big boy. He was like 152, I believe. But, you want to be on that varsity spot, and I think for me, it was, okay, even though I'm at JV, I'm not going to feel sorry for the kid that's in front of me. Like, I'm still going to wrestle. I'm still going to have that same mentality of like I'm going to give you my all. I'm going to bring you down to the mat. Doesn't matter the level. And, 8th grade, I did see some varsity. Also big shout out to Alex Head as well, because I know once I got into middle school, he came out for wrestling, and Alex Head was one of those kids where he almost was like a natural. I don't know if he did a lot of elementary wrestling, youth wrestling, but he was one of my huge wrestling partners all throughout my varsity career. And he was one of those kids. He just, he was good. he knew how to wrestle, and he pushed me, Seth, and that was awesome, you know. And I think 8th grade was the year where it's like, all right, and Levi Hickey as well. I saw Levi wrestling varsity, and like you see your friends wrestling varsity, and it's just like it's that same mentality when you're in 3rd grade shifting over to 4th grade. You see them winning these matches, you see how successful they are because they're busting their butt at practice. They don't want to lose. They don't want to lose against, you know, me, the kid who sucks 2nd year out. And I get that. You don't want to lose to anyone. So they were, you know, I think it's really important, you know, you find that wrestling partner who's around the same, you know what I mean? Even if they're better than you, if they beat you up every single time, give them your all. Like, you know, you gotta, like, don't be, I guess it's easier said than done, but especially for a kid in elementary, you know, if you're getting beat up all the time, just know, like, every time you get beat up, try and not actually beat up, but, you know, like, get beat out on the mat, try and actually, you know, take something. What did I do wrong? How can I fix it? Next time, try a different move, and you're going to see progress sooner or later. And it might take, you know, it took me 5 years. So there's hope. Right. There's definitely hope.
Yep. And then same story as your high school career went on. And that's kind of when I met you senior year, when my stepson was a 7th grader.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, it was kind of the same thing. You were right on the doorstep of getting there. And then finally senior year you did, and you didn't look down after that. You know, you just kind of took advantage of it.
And I actually remember Trey as well. He was always willing to wrestle with me and Seth. It's never like you know, and that was super awesome about him. And actually that's why I was very, very, very cool with Trey, because I feel like Triton wrestling has this reputation of, you know, we're not always the best team, you know. Sometimes we're the school that's looked at as like the football team, you know, maybe the volleyball or the track and the baseball team, or the pace, those types of sports for our school, you know. But wrestling definitely takes a lot of heart. It takes passion, man, and like you have to be passionate about it, because there's kids who are waking up every day, you know what I mean, and they're going on their 2-mile jog before school even starts. And they get to practice afterwards, and then they're staying after to do, you know, more takedowns, practicing their shots, shadow wrestling, working on whatever technique that they think they need to work on. And there's people who stay behind, and, you know, it's, even in high school, it took me a lot of work to get to, you know, that state championship match my senior year, because my freshman year, I ended up I didn't go to sections because I was wrestling 103, but I just couldn't cut the weight. And I ended up in the hospital from just having a bad diet on myself. Sophomore year took 3rd, junior year took 3rd. And then my senior year, I did the dang thing, you know, I got to the tournament.
Yep.
Yeah. And you did well.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. So
go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I guess our next question on the line, so I'm glad you went and built into it. What was it like wrestling in the state finals? I know my brother got to wrestle in the state finals the same year, a weight above you. I never made it there. You know, you always look at the moment, you know, you always think of how great it's going to be. And I'm sure it was that great when you actually did it.
Yeah, I actually remember before both of our matches, me and Mason were warming up together, and he kicked my butt too. I'll give him that. Mason was a very, very smart wrestler. So I'm happy that you and Mason are helping out with the youth and just the wrestling program at Triton, because you guys are great. You guys are great wrestlers, and you guys definitely have a great passion for the sport, and that's awesome. Triton should be proud to have you guys. But
yeah, we definitely are.
Yeah, the state finals were, oh man, that my whole state tournament was crazy. I was actually 4 pounds overweight my last weigh-in. No, I think I was more, actually. I spoke with Coach Van Beek a couple of weeks ago, early December, and he was telling me, he's like, dude, you were like 8 pounds overweight. And I just remember it was right before my semifinal match. I was running, just sprinting all around underneath, you know, the stands where everyone's sitting. And I'm just trying to cut this weight, spitting at the same time, like trying to, you know, use the bathroom as much as I can, just trying to get out as much weight as I can from out of my system. And I remember I was 0.2 under. I was 0.2 under my weight. So I think the weight class then I was wrestling 126, and it was 128 that I had to be under. and I weighed 127.8, and I freaked out. So I think the best match that I had at the state tournament was my semifinals match. Beek says that he has it recorded, but I won that match by 1 point against a kid who was seated higher than me. I wasn't seated in that tournament, so I was the complete underdog of that tournament. I wasn't seated, and I had to wrestle very tough wrestlers right away. I mean, when you're in the state tournament, you're gonna have all tough components.
Yep.
But my semifinal match is kind of the match that I'm proudest about, because I just knew I was that close and I could not lose. I was gonna do whatever it took to get to that, to have the opportunity to be the champ. So I won that match by 1 point, and it literally came down to the third period, and I got an escape, and that was it. And the whole time, it was just frontline defense, blocking every single shot, trying to counter with a different shot. But what saved me that whole entire match was my frontline defense, and just making it my match, taking control of the match in that way, and not letting my opponent get behind my hips, get my ankles, nothing. So that match is what I'm 100% proud of. My state finals match, that match actually, that match I will always hold dear to my heart, because that match has showed me so much more than just like what wrestling is. Wrestling is definitely a lifestyle, and you build this mentality that I don't feel like you can really get in any other sport. Because from that match, what I learned from that match and what I learned from that night, I take it with me everywhere I go. I take all the discipline, all the lessons that I got in just that one match, those 6 minutes. I've literally taken it with me through college. I've taken it with me for all of my, from graduating from college, to even landing my first big job, and you just realize, like, I ended up losing by 4 points. I think it was 11-6. I remember in the first match, I think it was 2-0. He already had or 2-1. He had a takedown on me, and I went in. I grabbed his leg. I had a single, but I forgot what the move is called. But boom, I was on my back for the rest of the whole first period. And that whole first period, I was just fighting not to get pinned, because I had it in my head. I was like, this is not happening here. Next thing I know, I'm on that leg, and then I'm on my back, and the only thing I see is the big like the Megatron thing of the
Yep. In the middle.
yeah, right in the middle, and I see all these lights, and the first thing you hear is the crowd going, ooh, like, you know what I mean? Everybody's synchronized, just ooh. And it was crazy because there's only 3 mats out there. So I knew all eyes were on me, and I just knew, like, do not give up. Whatever you do not lay that other shoulder flat. And I didn't. I made it to the second period, and I had to wrestle my way back. I had to give up some points so I could get other points. And there, you always run into these moments where you wish you could do things differently. But I remember in the match, I got one final takedown on him, and I was riding him, trying to turn him. But this is, I beat myself up sometimes even now, because I know, like, when you take someone down and they're on their side, all you have to do is throw that half in and get right over. You're getting back points right there. So I potentially could have gotten 3 back points, could have been a close match, could have pinned him. But, it's an exhilarating moment. Once you're there and your name gets called and you see all those people and, all eyes are on you, it's one of the best moments in the whole entire world. Time stops, and then you just realize, like, everything that you did that whole entire season, not even then, since 3rd grade, that's like what got me here. All those years of losing matches, going back, being able to watch tape on, seeing how I wrestled, what I did bad, and just trying to fix the little errors, the little, those little mechanics, the little techniques that you need to improve on in order to be a state champ. And, I don't let that get me down, though, that I lost it. I take the lesson that, like, if I want to be number 1 at whatever I'm at, I'm in sales now. So I'm the head of my department. I do business development, but what got me there is my passion. What got me there is my hard work and perseverance. And I just hold that in my head, that I don't want to come second to anything in anything that I do anymore. Like, I always want to be number 1 in the things that I do, whether it's friendly competition or whatever it might be. I try and make sure that I'm not taking any shortcuts. If things don't go the way that I wanted to, I can confidently say it's not because I didn't give it my all. It just either wasn't meant to be or bad timing or, you know, whatever other reason that it could have been. You know, maybe it wasn't the right fit. And that's something. Go on.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think a lot of like younger kids' parents that are just getting into wrestling, I think that's something that they don't realize right away is that it's not just wrestling practice for a 4-year-old. I mean, you're starting them to become men and women, and they're gonna learn goals and lifestyle rules and all this stuff that it's gonna benefit them their whole life. It's crazy how wrestling is a sport like that. And I was a basketball guy, you know that.
Yeah.
And I kind of just got converted over the last 7, 8 years now, and yeah, it's a really impressive sport.
Yeah. I mean, you know, like I think the biggest thing that I took from wrestling was definitely, you know, like discipline and just always giving everything your all because, oh man, when I lost that match, I don't think I've ever been that heartbroken in my whole entire life before because I knew there were things that I could have done in the season to, you know, to where I could have been the one getting my hand raised. There were so many things that I could have done differently. And it, you know, like you kind of get into this mode where you're like, you know, like a little bit of depression sets in, but you just have to realize like it's over and you have to move on just like any other match. You're going to lose some and you're going to win some. But when you do win them, it feels that much better because you knew you changed what you were doing wrong and you're doing it better or you're doing the right things now. And you're right. It's applicable to all things of life.
Absolutely. How long did it, so after that, you say you're a little heartbroken. How long did it take to set in from heartbroken on that match to knowing that, you know, for the most part, wrestling's done now? Being as it was your senior year last match, did it take a while for that to set in then?
That yeah, wrestling's over. Yeah, it did actually. So yeah, my senior year, as soon as that happened, I just went straight up in weight. I just kind of
I remember
imploded a
that.
little bit.
I think you were about 15 pounds heavier at the Wards banquet that year.
Yep, exactly. And you know, everyone's gonna come up like all your friends and all like, you know, your family, like, you know, thankfully, you know, I have like great support and, you know, everybody that was like on my side and stuff, you know, they were still there to, you know, thank me, tell me like, you know, congrats and everything and hype me up in the sense of like, dude, you took second state. Oh, that's awesome. And like when people say that, it just kind of it made me realize like that's not a good thing. Like I'm proud of how far like I've come and like my accomplishments and everything that I did, but you know, it's second in state is something, you know, to be that I'm always going to hold dear to my heart, but like it, you know, it gives you that mentality that like, dude, I don't want to be second anymore. I want to be number one. So it took me a while to kind of have that shift of like, okay, wrestling season's done. I'm no longer going to wrestle because I thought about going to wrestle at Augsburg. I had an offer to go wrestle at Augsburg. Um, had a couple of places, D3, UW Stout as well. And I kind of, to me, it was me losing that match was kind of like my parting, like goodbye. Like we had a good run. So when it was over for me, it took me probably up until my freshman year of college, second semester, because that whole first year, I went to Hamlin University, graduated from there as well, but Hamlin doesn't have a wrestling team. And so I tried to put together a club at Hamlin, and it would have been the first wrestling club ever at Hamlin. But when I was kind of like walking around, like I'm a freshman, so I don't know like a whole lot of people, but I'm a very I'm a very outgoing person. So it was easy for me to just go up to people and be like, or in mid conversation, like, do you wrestle? Have you ever wrestled before? And there were some people who were interested, and like we had this little get together, but there was 4 people there. And I knew like my drive for wrestling was a lot higher than theirs. It was more like, this is a club. We're going to kind of come talk and maybe we'll take shots or do some drills or like, you know, but I was ready to go on like, all right, let's warm up for 30 minutes. Let's jog around the mat 30 minutes. We're going to do some tumbles. We're going to do some stretching. We're going to do, you know what I mean? We're going to do some sprints for intervals of sprinting to jogging to just kind of like, you know, and then we're going to get in our stance, do shots, sprawls and stuff like that. And none of them were, I looked like that try hard kid, you know?
Yeah.
And that's when I kind of realized I was like, it's over. Like, you know, those days are done. And it's kind of like, it took a little bit for me to kind of take that, but I took all of that energy and that drive, and I really put it towards like, what do I want to do with the rest of my life now? You
Right.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, next question. I think I can guess this one, but I might be wrong. What's your favorite wrestling move?
What's your guess? What's your guess?
Fireman's.
Okay, that is definitely one of my favorite. Yes, you are so right. I love
I
the
know
fire.
you hit that on Mason and took him to his back, so that's why I said it.
Yeah, and yeah, Mason's a very smart wrestler. He's very receptive, and he can react very well, because I remember I tried going for a like an underhook, overhook type of thing, and I put pressure, and then he like put pressure back, and I put pressure again. Next thing I know, that second time I put pressure, he was baiting me, bang, threw me right to my back. So shout out to Mason on that. I definitely hope he sheds some of that wisdom to the youth and to the varsity JV wrestlers, because you guys are definitely a good pair of brothers to learn from. But yeah, definitely love the firemen's for my shot, and I didn't even actually add that to my caliber of weapons there up until my junior year. I wasn't doing firemen's. I was doing mostly just double legs, and my underhook overhook was my go-to. But you know, once you get ranked in state, I feel like people start to kind of notice who you are at tournaments a little bit more. They start to kind of, okay, this guy likes doing this when he's in the bottom position, when he's in the top position, when he's up standing. So I needed to add something else, and fireman's was like my favorite thing ever, because if you hit it right, it's just one smooth takedown. It's
Yeah, and it could be a 5-point move too.
exactly, and it's just so smooth if you hit it right. So that one, but I mean, to go even further, when I'm on top, in the top position, oh man, my favorite move, if they're not broken down yet, the first thing I'm gonna do is try and just snap an arm, go straight for the wrist. So break them down and go straight for the wrist. If you can get your hands on a wrist, you're gonna have control for the most part, and make sure to control those hips too. So.
Yeah.
What would be one or two like things you would really say to like a fourth, fifth, sixth grade wrestler of like what's something you should really try to focus on to get ready to take that next step up into JV and varsity?
Yeah, 100% is going to be frontline defense. I believe that if you have a really good frontline defense, your reflexes are going to be very sharp. They're going to be very quick. In wrestling, you need to be very sharp, very quick in all of your timing on moves that you're doing, and just even countering anything. If someone's shooting on you, your first reaction should be head down, or not head down, but block your feet right away with your hands, and get your head right at their level so they can't go any further than you. Sprawl and be very, very how should I put this? Be good with your hips. Know when to put your hip down, because I feel like at the youth level, one of my biggest problems was just always being taken down, just always having an open stance and not really working on my frontline defense. If you can work on your frontline defense, you're going to have a lot of success in just one, not being taken down, but two, from there, it's easy to just get around someone. Put your hand right into their armpit, come right around if you're quick enough and you can do it. But I would say frontline defense. And I know Morgan and Mason will definitely, walk you through that in practices. But frontline defense when you're standing there, but also on top of that, wrist control and tie control. Always have the inside position. If you have the inside position when you're tying up with someone, you're gonna have more access to do the shots that you want to do or set up what you want to do. And then on top of that, if you have wrist control, you're gonna have a lot of control. It's just the same thing as tying up. So I definitely say focus on those things, because the more you can focus on that and kind of have that down, the quicker and the easier it'll be to just start working on your shots, on your finishes, and then from there, your ground and pound, your ground game.
Nice.
Yeah, and like you kind of said, your offense can come off your defense as soon as you get them down and you get them where, I mean, you're already halfway done. They're already on the mat. You got a front head. You're already halfway there. It's the easy part now. The easy part's getting around.
Yep.
Or hitting a reshot. You snap them down. They circle out. you hit a reshot, and I mean, a lot of offense comes off defense. So
Yeah, that
yeah,
was, yeah, you're right. That was actually, now that you mention it, one of my favorite drills was the shot reshot. Because I know when I was wrestling with Seth, Alex Head, Levi, even Trey sometimes, you kind of want to go full out. You want your partner to be like, all right, take a real shot on me, take it 100%. I'm going to block it and I'm going to take my shot. And those are really great drills. You're 100% right on that.
yeah. So my question. Your favorite wrestling memory?
Oh man, honestly, like it really doesn't get any better than, getting your hand raised, sitting on top of that podium, the top one, and, winning your matches. That it doesn't get any better than that, really. But like, if I had to say my favorite like wrestling memory is the bond that I swear, like, even there's kids like Adam Becerra, Randy Henderson, Max Henderson that like I still care for them so much. Like I love them as if they're like my little brothers. Granted, like I don't talk to them as much as I used to anymore. Like, we're all out of high school now. We don't see each other every day, and we're, in different parts of the state and stuff. But I still care for them deeply. And all the guys that I wrestled with, Brock, Lucas, even some of the guys who were older than me, that were in Kev's grade when I think I was in 7th grade, that bond that you make with your teammates, it's like it motivates you that much because you see your teammate lose, like that's kind of a loss for you as well. That it puts you in a spot where you're just like, I'm gonna go out there and make sure like I win my match, like for the squad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's a very independent sport, man, and that's why I love wrestling, because you can't really blame anyone but yourself if you mess up or if you lose. But I don't think anything will be able to replace like the bond and the brothership that you have with your team.
Right. I think so. I'll just share a little story with you. My favorite memory so it was Trey's 7th grade year. You were a senior, he was in 7th grade, and we were in Wisconsin in Glenwood City. Remember, we'd go there every year.
Yep.
First tournament, and I think for whatever reason you didn't wrestle the first duel, and so we'd come off of being youth parents, and then we're getting into this high school thing, and now all of a sudden it's like grown men, you and Lucas and everybody. But it was the first match, I think, in that of the 5 matches, and they do like the scratch weight where they draw a number. So for whatever reason, you were the last wrestler of that match.
Yeah.
And I think we were down 5, right? And we needed a pin out of you. And I'd never seen you wrestle before. I just knew you because I knew your brother Kevin. And it came down to 3rd period, I think, and you got the pin, and it was game over. Basically, it was awesome. But it was pretty much our initiation as parents into like, oh, we're varsity parents now, and it's a whole nother level. But it was like there's 2 seniors on this team that are gonna like be great leaders for these kids. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I remember exactly what you're talking about, man. And I appreciate you bringing that memory up, and I feel like it's the same energy. If your teammates win, you get to rally around that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And that's so cool. And even if they lose, like you still rally around them. You give them your support, you give them your love, and you let them know like they're still your team, they're still your brother. You gotta love them.
But it was just perfect timing. It came down to 1 match left, and we got to send out senior captain, and you took care of business. It was pretty awesome memory.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Yeah, it's kind of funny when you said when your teammate loses, you also lose, and it's funny because when I was an 8th grader and Mason was a senior, if I lost the match, I felt bad for whoever was wrestling Mason because Mason was so mad. He's like, "All right, Morgen lost. Yeah, I'm getting this kid. And I felt bad for whoever wrestled him after I lost.
I hear you, man. I definitely hear you. Oh yeah.
All right. So I think we really only have one question that we haven't covered, and I'm excited to hear this answer. So what would you tell a kid that is thinking about going out for wrestling but isn't sure? Him or their parents, her? I mean, what would you tell them or their parents?
Yeah, I would tell them, try it out. Definitely try it. And it's like with starting anything new. If you're starting a new job, and I think that's the conversation that I would have with parents. Like when you first graduated high school, even if you didn't graduate, or not high school, but college, high school, wherever, you came from, you had to try new things. And you didn't know if you were good at it or if you were bad at it until you just threw yourself out there with the wolves and you figured it out. And if it wasn't you, then you moved on. And I think a lot of kids are even just kind of shy of even trying out right off the bat, because the word wrestling, like, it's wrestling, it's not like a sweet word. There's it's not violent or anything by any means. It can get violent when you're at the varsity level and the college level, but like the word wrestling, not everyone is so keen to that word. They're not very welcoming to that word. So especially having, whether they're starting off at 4, 5, 6 years old, 7, 8 years old, like, as a parent, you're going to kind of think like, my son's just going to go out there and he's either going to get tossed and thrown around by all these other little kids, or he could be good. And wrestling is definitely a sport where if you're interested, definitely give it a go, try it out, but just know that you're not going to see immediate results. And sometimes there are kids who are just that this is, what I mean, for their youth, maybe high school, or even throughout for their whole entire career, this is what they're meant to do. And I think we've seen a lot of wrestlers, especially from Minnesota, where, yeah, you were definitely bred to wrestle, but go out there, give it all that you can, and you're going to know, like, you're going to learn so much. Even if it's just your first season coming out, you're going to learn a lot about yourself, because you're going to be at these these obstacles where you either fight or flight. You're either going to keep going and you're going to push yourself harder to either, one, get off your back so you don't get pinned, 2, to get that takedown. You're going to drive even harder to get that, or 3, just even with conditioning, you're going to really test your limits. And I think it's a good way to test and see who you truly are as a person.
Well, I think that's a good thing for parents to hear too. Because wrestling's an intimidating sport if you've never had any experience. And you guys both come from families that were wrestling families, and Morgan especially, probably deeper than your family. And I'm coming, in as somebody that I barely ever watched a wrestling match until Trey was like in 5th grade. And it sucks you in. And at first it's intimidating, and you think, you don't want them to get hurt and you don't want them to do this and blah, blah, blah. But you're going to find out that it's life training from day one. They're learning skills that they're going to take on forever, and it's great.
100%.
I agree.
And I think having, like, people to learn from, like you, Morgan, and Mason, that's really cool. Like, you guys are great wrestlers, and you guys are very passionate about the sport. And, you guys, when you're that passionate, you're going to be passionate about the kids that you're teaching, that you're coaching, and you're bringing to these tournaments, and that you're representing. So I think parents and kids themselves need to kind of put their trust in their coaches. I think that was one of the most difficult things my parents had to do with Coach Shane Van Beek, because parents are both immigrants from Guatemala. They knew what wrestling was, but to them it was just like something that he's just entertaining. They thought I was going to, do something with soccer or do something with football. And I was like, wrestling's where it's at for me, and I think, Shane, the person that he was, Shane Van Beek, the person that he was, he was so passionate about the sport that he was like my second dad when it came to wrestling. Like, when it came, like, I would see him every day, Monday through Saturday. Sundays I wouldn't see him, but Monday through Saturday, it's like, all right, Beek, like, game plan, let's talk shop, let's, you know what I mean? What do you think I need to do better? Like, when I'm on the ground, he introduced tilting to me when I was on the ground. Like, you should start doing tilts. And same with Dale Jensen and Mark Head. Those guys were so passionate about it. And I know my senior year, Bob Bowman came in, and he was, he's a legend.
There ain't many more that are more passionate about it than Bob.
Yeah. And oh man, I felt very blessed having him in that wrestling room with us at the time. He was very, very old school, but a lot of those old school wrestlers, it's brute strength, technique, and a whole lot of guts. And I think that's, what I mean? That's still the wrestling today, but man, it's just a different breed of wrestlers. It's obviously different generations, but it was awesome having all of those guys in there in that room, because I think the biggest thing, without the coaches, I wouldn't have been who I am as a wrestler or even as a person, to this day.
Well, so I'm hoping that some of those guys are going to watch this video. So maybe before we can go, I mean, you can kind of just give a little update to some of them. We were talking before we started this. There's some news going on in your life. Maybe you just kind of want to fill everybody in. I know, was it 2 years ago now you graduated college, right?
Yep, graduated in 2019. I know I spoke with Shane the other day, and he filled me in on a lot of the accomplishments that he has going on at the Triton Triton Public School. So congratulations on that. I haven't talked to Mark Head in such a long time, and I miss that guy so much because he used to call me his son, and I know he was such a great wrestler as well. He was a beast, and I tell you what, he was old, but he would kick my butt every day in that wrestling room.
I'll make sure to get this video off to his wife and make sure he watches it.
Yeah, he was a beast, man. Same with Dale Jensen. Dale Jensen as well. He was very, very passionate about it. He had a lot of sons go through the program, and I mean, I feel like Dale was definitely a part of like that Triton legacy, after like
Still
20.
is, man.
Yeah,
Still on
100%.
staff. We actually, his grandson's on the 5th grader on our youth team. So
Yeah, but yeah, just a big update for all you guys. I miss you guys so much. I still think about you guys. Still huge fans of, Dale, Mark Head, PP, Mr. Van Beek, and of course, Bob Bowman, and any other coaches that came in. I know there's another coach who helped Lucas out our senior year.
Corey Morgen.
Corey Morgen, he was a beast too. Yeah, just, I got engaged. I have the ring on now. I wear it because I love the ring. But on top of that, yeah, I'm engaged. I got engaged December 13th in 2020, and I'm about to be a dad here in February 18th. And I still take a lot of what you like, the wisdom that you guys shared with me. I still take it with me every single day just to be a better person, be better than I was yesterday. That's in all aspects of life. Even with graduating college, I know a lot of kids, when they get to that, next level of higher education, they, it gets scary. And there were times where I wanted to, quit, drop out, but, the wrestler inside of me just would not let me quit. It would not let me give up. And I got my degree, and now I'm here, and hopefully here sometime soon I'll be getting a home with my fiance, probably within the next couple of years. We're saving up and we're being smart, and a lot of that discipline comes from wrestling, a lot of that. And obviously it comes from the person too, the character that the person carries, but wrestling builds character. And I remember Shane always said that, Mr. Van Beek always said that wrestling builds the heck out of character, that conditioning. When you're dead, you really show what you're made of when you still go for those, those 6 minutes, and you're on the mat, the conditioning will show for that too. So definitely, I know Morgan and Mason will definitely have a big impact on a lot of these kids' lives too. And best of luck to you guys as well, Morgan and Mason. Like, congrats on getting those positions as coaches at Triton. That's awesome, and they should feel really grateful to have coaches like you guys, and you as well, Chris, for being super involved, man. That's awesome. You're very involved, and that's really cool.
Yeah, it's
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you guys for asking me to come on and asking me these questions. I got to relive my history a little bit.
Well, we're looking forward to you. Maybe you can get some time off and come down in the room, and I'm sure the varsity staff would love you to come in there too. And I know we still got kids that talk about when you came down. Was it 3 years ago?
Yeah,
Came down for one night in the middle of winter, and I still got kids asking about you every night almost. So
yeah. I need to come in.
Yeah.
So, you're welcome whenever.
Yep.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you coming on tonight.
Yes, it was nice talking to you.
Yep.
Yeah, nice talking to you guys as well. Thank you.
Yep.